The New York Jets have 2 out of their 3 preseason contests in the books. The Jets will host the Giants for their joint practice ahead of their annual preseason game on Saturday. What have been the biggest takeaways of the preseason so far? Who has stood out? Who is not? Who better to bring on to talk all things New York Jets preseason than Jet X Factor's Andrew Fialco? Let's roll.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Welcome in, everyone. We are here, and it is a Tuesday afternoon. The Jets have actually just wrapped up their training camp practice on the day. The Jets will host the Giants for their joint practice ahead of their preseason contest on Saturday. The Jets have had, 2 preseason games now. It's been abundantly clear, who stood out and who has not. Who better to talk all things in New York Jets preseason than Mr. Andrew Fialco of Jets X Factor. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Good, Connor. Happy we finally made this happen, and good to be on with you.
Really appreciate you coming on. You ready to get right into it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Panthers preseason game, obviously we saw some players stand out that play a fine role in the game against the Commanders, but Brennan Codrington especially is someone who stood out. A 63-yard kick return, and then he had a couple, I think 2 punt returns for 46 yards. You look at a player like Codrington, when you look at him, he's undersized for a cornerback. Obviously, there's talks about Irv Charles, too, possibility of him just making the roster solely as a special teams player. What are your thoughts on Codrington?
Yeah, Codrington actually caught my eye in the first training camp practice that I was at, which was a couple weeks ago, because it was him, Malachi Corley, Tariq Cohen at the time, and like Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. They were all taking reps back there. I think Codrington's been the only guy that's really stepped up and showed out like rep-wise in preseason. So I think, like you said, that would be the only way he would make the roster. I honestly am on the side of Irvin Charles is going to make the roster because he's been a solid special teamer for us, at least last year, maybe the year before as well. I don't know if he's going to constitute in our really like our receiver depth area, which is why the last receiver between like Brownlee and whoever else is competing for right now will be up in the air. But I think Irvin will make it. Now, Codrington's interesting because do they feel comfortable having Corley back there? Obviously, with the new rules, it's going to be 2 returners. So would it be Codrington and Corley? Would Isaiah Davis maybe be a returner? I obviously Gibson's number 1 on the depth chart, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see if Codrington's going to make it. A week from today, we'll know the final roster.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Irv Charles there, and like I said, he's another name. Do they carry him just for special teams purposes? We saw him go down with a minor injury. He got his hand on Johnny Ecker's punt. It didn't seem to affect it, though, as Johnny Ecker still got off a bomb of a punt. With that being said, you have Irv Charles making the Jets roster. Do you have the Jets carrying 6 or 7 receivers to start the year?
Again, it's just tough because it's however they want to construct the roster. So obviously there's ways to construct the roster that most of the teams in the NFL do. It's like carrying a certain amount of running backs. Obviously, receivers, you don't see any team really doing more than 7. Right now, you have obviously the locks of Mike, Garrett, Xavier, Lazard, and Corley. So I think those 5 are pretty much locked in. And then it's really up between like Irvin Charles, a guy like Lance McCutcheon, who's Rodgers has spoken about multiple times.
Called him out in his media availability, yep.
Yeah, yep. I've been a big fan of Jason Brownlee since we drafted him, since he was like an undrafted guy for us last year. It seems like he's definitely on the bubble. So then it just comes to, Connor, like, do they value the receiver depth or do they want these guys as gunners in special teams? So does Brownlee have the ability to play as a gunner? I don't really know. But Irvin Charles is pretty good at being a gunner. He's played for us as a gunner now, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so, staying with the topic of depth at the gunner position, the Jets have Isaiah Oliver, who has experience playing there, just converted from cornerback to the safety position. Looking at Quantez, Stiggers fans have been like, all right, what we've seen from Quantez, you see him every play, he's in the backfield. He's making tackles almost every play. You look at him and fans are like, oh, this guy could be a gunner. Let's say the Jets decide to throw a guy like Irv Charles on the practice squad. Who do you think that next guy is who could step up and play gunner? Also, not to mention the Jets have Brendan Eccles on their roster, who has some experience playing there. Oh, Andrew, did we lose you? Let's see. Andrew. Andrew going once, going twice, and it looks like we have lost Andrew. I will add him back to the stage when looks like it looks like he is still frozen there. But anywho, back to what we were talking about in terms of the gunner position. When all said and done, the Jets have a ton of depth at that position when you think about it. Brendan Eccles, I gave a bit of a hot take last night on my show with Boy Green. I said there's a chance that the Jets could maybe go after and trade for a player, get rid of a player like Eccles and acquire more draft capital. However, I don't know if that's 1,000% chance. I think that's, I wouldn't call it unrealistic. I just don't really see that happening. But he has experience playing there. Oliver has experience there, but obviously Charles has seemed to be the favorite there. However, Charles he did get injured, but he was among one of the lowest graded players per PFF. Yeah, he had a PFF grade of 44.4. And he had a team high last year when he played. He had a team high special teams grade of 90.5. That was his grade last year. So but it's going to be really interesting though to see the way the Jets construct their roster. And Dom C called into my show with Boy Green last night. He made a very good point, and I've said this all along. The Jets are going to choose the 53 guys that they think are not going to get claimed by waivers, especially when it comes. That's why I think the running back battle is so interesting. Would they want to carry an extra running back like Izzy Abanikanda because they're afraid if they put him on the practice squad, another team is going to pick him up. Maybe it's something where they put him inactive on game day, but they want to keep him as they look at him as someone who could develop into, hopefully a good solid running back for the Jets in the coming years. So let's say what's up to everyone in the chat. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, good to see you. Really appreciate the support. Mr. Roberts, good to see you. JTS Jets. There we go. If you're just joining in, I see we have a couple people joining in. It looks like it appears to be that Andrew's Wi-Fi had glitched out a little, and he is back. It looks like Andrew is back, so let's bring him back on the show. Andrew, going once, going twice. Are you there?
I'm here. I was just talking. I don't even know when I went out. But I'm back. All
right, you're back. So yeah, back to what I was saying about the gunner position. Let's say the Jets decide to put a player like Irv Charles on the practice squad, and they're not afraid that he's going to get snagged by another team. Between Eccles, Oliver, and the possibility of Stickers playing there, who would you say is the favorite after Charles?
You would have to say it would be Stiggers, like over a guy like Codrington, just because we used a 5th round pick on him, and he's going to be on. I see Stiggers as like a lock to make the roster. But then you have to also think about it. Like, is Codrington going to be useful for us because of his special teams ability besides a gunner, being a kick returner? So then it just comes down to, Connor, how comfortable do the Jets feel with Malachi Corley and Isaiah Davis as the kick returners? Are they going to be the ones with Xavier Gibson, or do they want Codrington on the roster? And then he would maybe be a gunner, maybe be a kick returner, maybe both.
Yeah, you mentioned your first training camp practice you went to. Codrington kind of caught your eye. Obviously, there's a lot of talent competing for that kick return position. You mentioned Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson. All 4 of those players are going to make the roster no matter what, because of their skill position. Codrington would basically be a kick return guy only. Let's say Codrington doesn't make the roster. You think those 2 guys back there are going to be Corley and Davis?
Yeah. I think it would be Corley and Davis.
Okay.
I personally would like the combination of Gibson and Corley. I think that's a really good 2-man back there. Corley doesn't have a ton of kick return experience. Obviously, Gibson does, but Corley is a menace with the ball in his hands. Anytime we could get him touches, that's kind of how he's going to be put into the offense as the year goes on. Like, we're going to have to manufacture touches for him, get him the ball. We've seen that in preseason. He's had so many screen passes to him already. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Corley's, definitely an interesting name to watch there. He didn't have a ton of experience playing there in college, but the Jets, I think that's a perfect way to utilize him in the offense. We saw it with Xavier Gibson last year. He started off in that role. As the season went on, we started seeing, become more and more of a focal point on this New York Jets offense. So yeah, that's definitely something really interesting to watch. But moving over to the offensive line, UFL standout lineman Cole Laval signed with the Jets earlier this offseason. I think the main thing that catches a fan's eyes when you look at Laval's numbers is he has experience playing all five spots on the line. He stood out during the joint
Mhm.
practice against the Panthers and the Commanders, had a great game against the Commanders, but most notably, he played 100% of the snaps against the Panthers. So that's definitely something interesting to watch. And he was among one of the highest graded players. Let's see, his exact grade 76.8 overall grade from PFF. When you look at a player like Laval, obviously you have Xavier Newman who stood out as well. Chris Glacier's also competing for that final spot along with Jake Hansen. Would you want to
Mhm.
go with the versatility there with Laval?
Yeah, I think I was just looking at his PFF stuff before the show. He
Yep.
only allowed one pressure on 13 pass blocking snaps, so that's a good sign. I don't know how much experience he has in like the NFL. Like this is his first year, right? Was he
Yeah.
undrafted free agent?
He was an undrafted free agent. Then he played for the San Antonio Brahmas, I think is how you say the team
Okay.
name for the UFL. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that could give him a good chance to make the roster, the fact that he's played every position on the line. Now, I actually have been a fan of like Chris Glazer
Yeah.
and Newman. I think they both had really good preseasons. I think Schweitzer's kind of a lock to make it
Yeah.
just as like a backup center. But maybe that then it gets back to the point of how many O linemen are we going to keep? It's usually no more than like 11, I would think.
I think it'll
You
be
have your
10.
10. Yeah, you have your five starters, five backups, maybe a guy that's on like field goal unit. But where does Laval really fit there? I don't know. Maybe he makes it over a guy like Jake Hansen. I think the tackle positions are pretty set. Now I'm even thinking about it. We really do have like five tackles that are going to make the roster because it's Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, Morgan Moses, and
Ashino.
then Olu and Tyron. So that kind of could put him in a bad spot. As you said, they probably won't have more than 10 on the 53 man.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Olufashinu there. That's someone I definitely want to talk about. He played right tackle for the first time in the preseason against the Panthers. He played left tackle against the Commanders. He did have a lower PFF grade given, I think he one of the lowest on the team, I think it was. It was 48.0 overall grade from PFF. Obviously, it's tough to judge from, one game of him playing there. He did have a holding penalty, kind of cleaned it up as the game went on. You look at a player like Fashanu though, Tyron Smith hasn't played a fully healthy season since 2015, and then behind him is Max Mitchell, Carter Warren. Mitchell played well, I'd say, in the second
Mhm.
preseason game. But how important do you think it is that there's a possibility that Fashanu could be a swing tackle? So Moses and Smith, who've both had health issues, if one of them goes down, how important do you think it is that Fashanu is the next one up, rather Warren or Mitchell?
Yeah, I think it's so important. The fact that we put a pick in him like at the point we did in the first round with the 11th pick, that's a huge investment. And nowadays it's important for guys to have the versatility to play the left and the right. Like Mekhi Becton, he wasn't a big fan of that. He said, I'll recall him saying like the right tackle spot, it felt like he was almost learning a new sport. The fact that Olu looks as good as he does, in my opinion, I thought that holding call was pretty bad on him. I was watching
Yeah,
most of his reps. Um, I thought Olu looked like very good for someone that doesn't play right tackle and basically has zero experience at it. So yeah, it's huge that he's gonna have the ability to be a swing tackle rather than putting in a guy like Max Mitchell or Carter Warren, because Olu's obviously a lot more talented. And if he does feel comfortable and one of them go down and he obviously he's ready to go in at left tackle. But if Moses were to go down, I would hope that he would be ready to go in at right tackle. I just don't know if they're going to have him ready by let's say week one if something bad were to happen. But it's good that he's taking reps in training camp and now in preseason.
absolutely. Let's get into some questions in the chat. Mr. Roberts wants to know, Andrew, who do you think is going to be the Jets' third string quarterback in 2024? I'll let you go here. I'll let you go first here on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough question because is Jordan Travis going to be ready? When is he going to be ready? I think it'll be Peasley that they end up dressing as the emergency guy. So Travis is not going to be dressing. I don't think for the first. I'm assuming he'll start on the pup list or whatever. Um, what do you think?
So yeah, my thoughts. It's a little complex here for me personally. So I think Travis is going to be in for a full redshirt season. He's currently on the reserve slash non-football injury list, so that's definitely something to keep an eye on. He suffered that crazy leg injury in November 2023. I don't think we see him at all. But with the new, like you mentioned, that the emergency quarterback, there are new emergency quarterback rules this season. If I had to choose right now, probably be Adrian Martinez just because his ability to like run out of the pocket and stuff. I'd,
Yeah.
I'd probably take him over Peasley there. But when all's said and done, I think they practice squad one of them and they only keep Tyrod and Rogers on the active roster. How many quarterbacks do you think they're going to keep on the active roster? Because given you mentioned the emergency quarterback there.
Yeah, so with the emergency quarterback, they have no reason to do any more than that. I think it'll be
Mhm.
like you said, Rogers, Tyrod, emergency. Um, so I again Peasley Martinez. I feel like the fans fell in love with both of them after the first preseason game, but then it kind of came back to earth in the second one. Um, I, I I don't really have a big preference between the two of them. I actually do agree with you more that it's better to have a guy like Martinez who can make something happen when the structure of the play isn't there. It seems like Peasley's a little bit more of a pocket passer, rather than Martinez can escape the pocket, make something happen. Um, so I don't really have a preference. I'm hoping Jordan Travis is the third string like whenever he's healthy. But yeah, Peasley or Martinez, it's really not like a big needle mover for either of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna move over to the defensive side of the ball. Someone who's working his way. He's trying to resurrect his career. Currently, he actually followed me on Instagram 2 days ago, and that
Hmm.
is Talk McKinley. He has
Oh
stood
wow.
out in these first two. He stood out in these first two preseason games. Jet fans have really seemed to like him. He's shown it's like, hey, it's never too late to resurrect your career. He played with Jeff Obrick in Atlanta. What do you think his chances are of cracking a spot on the roster and making a difference over a guy like possibly Leonard Taylor, Braden McGregor, or Eric Watts if it comes down to those guys?
Yeah, so I actually really like McGregor. I think he's had a good preseason. I think Watts has played well. I think Leonard Taylor has flashed, who's a one-time big-time prospect. So I think they've all flashed. Unfortunately, I feel like Clemens is just going to make the team, and
Oh yeah,
I'm not really a fan of Michael Clemens. I think honestly, in the small time we've watched Tack McKinley, he's shown a lot more than Clemens, and Clemens hasn't really looked good in the preseason at all either. So I do think Tack McKinley is going to make the roster, especially with Reddick's situation right now. So we essentially have an extra spot. I don't really see where McKinley doesn't make it. I think he's literally going to be the first edge off the bench besides like McDonald. I think when you look at it in our nickel defense, it's going to be JJ Quinnen, Kinlaw or Solomon Thomas, and then Clemens may start, but you really need to have a guy like Will McDonald who could maybe play on the same spot that Clemens will play, or even Tack McKinley. So I think he's pretty has a really good chance of making the roster.
Yeah, you mentioned Hassan Reddick there. That leads me to my next question with him holding out. And I personally think there's a large possibility that this goes really through the start of the season. With that being said, obviously it's tough for one player to fill the shoes of Hassan Reddick as he has over 50 sacks in the past 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Look at this Jets defensive line. You have Tack McKinley, not Max Mitchell, Michael Clemens, who you mentioned earlier, Will McDonald. What do you think that combination is going to look like, and who do you think is going to be that one who steps up and really fills the shoes of Reddick if this goes into the regular season?
It's got to be Jermaine. It's got to be Jermaine to start the year. And I think he's more than capable of that. He was one of my biggest like stars from watching film. The way he really elevated his game. I know everyone talks about the jump year by year, but Jermaine really did that. He was one of the most efficient pass rushers on the team last year. Obviously, we lose JFM, we lose Huff. There's a lot of pressures and sacks that are left on the table there. So Jermaine's gonna have to step up. You hope that a D tackle like maybe Solomon Thomas, maybe Kinlaw has a little bit of a renaissance now that he's back with Salah, can take some pressure off Quinnen, who's undoubtedly going to be double teamed a lot of the time. So then it just comes down to our edge guys winning, and we need Jermaine to win as much as he did last year, even if he can win more. And then obviously McDonald's a bit of a question mark, and he's now getting thrown into the fire, I think, because if Reddick doesn't show up, McDonald's snap count's going to be extremely higher than it would be if Reddick was here. So it's time for McDonald to show up as the first round pick that we thought he was. And I think he has the ability. I'm a little bit concerned about his size overall. Wasn't able to put on a ton of weight in the offseason, which is not the best thing because it seems like he's getting stonewalled by a couple like second, third string tackles out there just because he's not as big as them. But getting McDonald in on third down situations where it's obvious passing situations, I think he can excel with like guys like Jermaine and Quinnen next to him.
Absolutely. Moving over to the cornerback position, JBC, who recently converted to the safety position, had a great first preseason game and a half, if you really think about it. He went down with an injury. Jets head coach Robert Saleh went and later said during his media availability that it looks like JBC is going to be sidelined for the rest of training camp and possibly, goes into the regular season maybe a little. Obviously, JBC, he's shown a lot throughout training camp. The Jets seemed to like him last year, as they did not want any other team to get their hands on him after he was basically injured the majority of last season. The Jets did everything they can to keep him on their roster. Do you think this injury hurts JBC's chances, or do you still view him as a roster lock for the Jets?
No, I think he's a roster lock. As we were saying before, I think it's like Saleh almost said it. He was like, he's out for the rest of training camp. He'll be ready week 1. So I think he's a roster lock. I think he's going to be a valuable contributor on special teams. And then really, we don't have the best cornerback depth. It's very young. Besides, like if Sauce were to go down, are you going to put Stiggers in? Is JBC going to go in? They've recently put Echols in when like DJ Reed went down last year, but Echols is very undersized and not the best corner. I think personally that Stiggers can do it, but honestly, they might view JBC as their outside corner number 3 behind Sauce and DJ. And after watching him in the preseason, I would almost feel the most comfortable with him over Stiggers, over Echols. I think he's really showed out. He had a great game against the Commanders. He let up one catch on a really good ball from Jaden Daniels down the sideline that he was actually in good coverage in. And then besides that, they targeted him 6 times. He let up one catch. That was the only catch. And let's remember, he's moving from safety to cornerback here. So it's a big transition for him and seems to be almost seamless so far. So I think he's a lock to make the roster, yes.
Yeah, no, Andrew, someone who converted from cornerback to the safety position, we spoke about him a little earlier, Isaiah Oliver. He hasn't really, I would be lying if I said he's really showed out throughout training camp and preseason so far, but someone who's, Mr. Irrelevant, Jalen Key, has shown some flashes throughout training camp and preseason. But going back to Oliver, you look at him, he hasn't really shown a ton. Do you still consider him a roster lock?
He's tougher in my opinion because, like you said, we have 3 safeties that are locks: Ashton, Chuck, and Tony. So I think those guys are all locks. And then you really would only keep one other guy. So is it going to be Key or is it going to be Oliver? I don't know. I actually have found on watching film, I like Jalen Key more. Like you said, Isaiah Oliver has kind of been quiet. That's never really a horrible thing for a safety because they may not get targeted a lot. They're playing deep zones. How are they in the run fits? I think Key has shown out a little bit better than Oliver. I don't think Oliver is a lock at all. I think that's another battle that's going to come down to the last day, and it's going to be, again, like the last safety to make the team.
Absolutely. But Andrew, we have a caller on the line. You ready to go to him?
Yes, sir.
There we go. We got Bobby Midnight joining the show. Bobby, how you doing?
Guess what? I get 3 for 3 today. I get on Jake's show today at 4:30. What's his
Robbie
name?
Sabo.
Yeah, Robbie Sabo. You 3 X Factors. Wow, I'm in luck. 3 for 3 today. Andrew is.
Bobby.
Do you hear the good news about our friend over here?
I think I know what you're talking about.
1K. Let's give him.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Clap for him.
Thank you.
Andrew, clap.
Sorry, Bob.
How many viewing hours you have now? You know?
What do you mean? Currently watching live?
Yeah. No, I mean, the numbers that you were worried about before.
Oh, watch hours? All right,
Yeah.
so we're just 300 watch hours away from monetization. So we're that close.
All right, let's go. 300 watch hours.
we're at 2,700, and we were at 2,400 this time last week. So we could easily get it in like 2 or so weeks.
Congratulations, my pal. Oh
Thank
my
you.
This kid is rocking it. He's gonna have an interview with Newsday, and I deliver Newsday when I was his age. I'm old fart, remember? I'm like grandpa to him. He is grandpa.
How's it going, Bob?
Yeah, well, my daughter's 18. I had her at 38. So
Okay.
yeah, I was a late bloomer for kids, I didn't find the right lady until I found her. But the Jets, I think Allen's gonna have a great year. Do you think Andrew, my best running back?
Yeah. I love Braylon Allen. I'm very high on him.
He's rocking it. He is rocking it. So is Rodgers. He's gonna destroy the league. I'm telling you right now.
Now, Bobby, I have a question for you. Other than you've made it abundantly clear that Braylon Allen is your favorite player on this New York Jets roster. After Braylon Allen, who is your second favorite player on the Jets?
Well, I do like Andrew and Aaron Rodgers. I do like him. He's a great quarterback. I don't like the people talking about him. Those stupid reporters. I think they're idiots. They stay in a room and smoke kush. That's what I think they do. Like Colin
Coward, yeah.
Yeah, he did it again today. He was talking about Aaron Rodgers. Will he shut up because he doesn't even know Derek Jeter didn't play with Nolan Ryan? I got to call this guy and settle him down. So Chris Canty, I got to call him. Can't wait till I get a hold of these guys. Wait until I get a hold of them.
Now, Bobby, what is your record prediction for the Jets in 2024?
Oh, 12-5.
Who do you have them losing to?
Oh, let's see. I think one time to Miami. I have to say, Miami's tough at home. They might lose there. Then, I don't know. I worry about Pittsburgh, but I think they'd take care of Pittsburgh. Well,
Pittsburgh's an underrated game on the schedule. Personally, I have the Jets. I have the Jets winning, and I think the floor is 10 wins, and I think the ceiling is 13 wins. That's what I look at it. I have them winning between 11 and 12 games. Personally, I think they'll lose to the 49ers week 1, but I think
I think they got the crush the 49ers.
I hope they do. But a lot of it depends. Is Ayuk playing? Is he not? Is Trent Williams out of his holdout? Is he not?
I heard he's not. That guy Trent Williams is not playing.
Yeah, he's holding out, but like a lot of factors go into that game, and how do they play it? But I think after that, even if they were to lose that, they have a very easy schedule until they play the Texans. I believe it is on Halloween. I think they'll.
We're going to that game, me and my brother.
Yep,
and they're gonna stomp all over them.
I think they'll lose to the 49ers. I think they'll lose to the just for this. They definitely have a chance to beat the Niners. Like they definitely do.
Destroy them. I hope they stack the quarterback. What's his name?
Brock Purdy.
Yeah, he's so pretty. Well, he's gonna get sacked about 6 times eating that turf. Like 6 times. That's my prediction. 6 times.
I definitely
3 interceptions.
I definitely think there's a chance they beat them. I think it's good. Personally, I want an easier matchup week 1, but I feel like it's good that they're playing them earlier in the season. So I think, veteran-based team, they're going to be fully healthy, hopefully, at least when they're playing the 49ers. It's better to do that, I'd rather, than a fully depleted team. Hopefully not, but later in the season, the possibility of Tyron Smith being injured towards the end. So yeah, it's definitely interesting, but I think the Texans that's going to be a tough game.
Last year we beat them. What was the score we beat them last
30-6, but that was without CJ.
I'm not worried about them.
That was without CJ Stroud and Tank Dell.
No, we're gonna take.
Stroud played.
Stroud played. He got injured.
It was like a rainy, weird game.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that team at all. They don't.
Yeah, and it was also a fluke game. I mean, Zach Wilson threw for over 300 yards.
Oh yeah, that's the one. He was like, he must have been on something. He got lucky that game. He must have been on something. He got lucky that game. But we don't want to talk about the child. We don't like the child. My brother loves the child. He says Zach Wilson's going to be great in Denver. Well, whatever, Michael. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
child is
I think they'll lose. I think they'll split with. I think there's a honestly, I think the Dolphins. I think they'll probably split with the Dolphins, but I think they'll sweep the Bills. I don't know
about that. They always have problems up in sweeping the Bills. So,
Yeah, they have. But Bobby,
especially at Buffalo.
yeah, Bobby, we appreciate the call. You got any final
Yeah.
thoughts?
Oh, you guys are great. You're a great young man. I tell you, you're awesome. Keep
Thank
what
you.
I bet your parents are very proud of you. I'm very proud of you.
Me or Andrew?
Both of you.
Oh,
You,
thank you.
Connor.
You guys are
You,
young.
Connor.
Look how young Andrew looks. He looks like he's still in high school. They say, when is he got to bring his lunch pail to school? All right. Last time. When are
This
you
like
on Jake's show this week? Thursday?
What's up?
When are you on Jake's show this week?
Tomorrow.
Thursday.
But
All right. You're there again twice in 1 week.
he's
Andrew.
going to Vegas. You probably know he's going to Vegas.
I know, for that thing, well, we could call him Vegas. We could have fun.
Yeah.
What is that expression? Whatever stays in Vegas.
Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
yes,
There you go. All right. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for having me on, Connor.
of course.
You're excellent. A+ on everything you do. So, Andrew. Bye
Appreciate
now,
it.
everybody.
Thank you, Bobby.
Bye, Bobby.
Appreciate the call. And Andrew, I think we've just surpassed the 30-minute mark. I think that's a great way to end the show. Andrew,
Yeah.
really appreciate you joining me. And I've started this about a month and a half ago now. At the end of every show, I ask my guests signature question: if you could bring 4 people out to dinner, 4 people ever, dead or alive, who are you taking out?
Well, I'm gonna keep it football related.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid.
Wow, I like it. So you went with two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and then you went the coaching angle, Kyle Shanahan, obviously with his offense, and Andy Reid, the way he can just lead a team to a Super Bowl time in and time out. But Andrew, really appreciate you joining me. You got any final thoughts?
No, thank you for having me, Connor. We'll definitely do
course.
this sometime
Mhm.
again soon. Can't wait for the season to start. Just been doing show after show, honestly, and I want the season to start so bad. But proud of you and happy to see everything you're doing. Happy to have you at JetX,
Thank you.
and we'll definitely do this again.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate you joining me. Everyone, thank you guys for watching. And as always, JTS Jets, Jets, Jets.